Hello, welcome. Today I want to talk to you about a couple different things, but there'll probably be a second film to kind of finish through with this. Basically, our goal today is to begin our exploration of a work inspired by Joseph Albers. Kind of the first thing we did was sort of part of his what thing did we do? When we made these things, these little units that were to discover color interaction, we were following his kind of classwork. Now we're going to kind of follow his artwork. We're going to make some work inspired by, or in the style of, or even a kind of a copy of Joseph Albers's meditation or homage to the square or a square. There are many works like this. Homage is a French word mostly, and it means like an ode to, like it's dedicated to in a way. So, and you can look that up, because if you look up the word homage, which sounds like it starts with O, but it's actually a silent H, so it's Homage, you will find a better description of its meaning than my kind of off the cuff example. But you'll remember I asked you to look at a bunch of pieces that look like this, but with color. And now I want you to pick one or two and explore them by actually painting them and filling in these like spaces with color, but not this small. This is too small. But I want you to start small. I know, it's so crazy. I'm going to just go through it as I would do this if I was going to try to complete this assignment. And then you'll know everything you need to know, maybe more than you need to know. So let's set this aside for a second, because I'm not sure how I want to go from having this template to having it on a larger piece of Bristol paper yet. But I'm going to figure that out. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is making things, because making things begets making things. And so like visual ideas like a drawing or a painting, the more of them you make, the more like daily or weekly interaction you have with making something like that, the more you will have ideas for making things like that. Does that make sense? For example, I'm just going to bring this up. I have some weird items here because we did a little bit of cleaning around the house, and these funny things showed up. These are like plastic pearls. You probably can't tell. Half pearls. They're like a half sphere with sticky on the back. And this is just a piece. You know how you get like maybe a jewelry in a box and it comes with this weird foamy stuff inside? So I've got these two things, and I am going to make something out of them, but I don't know what yet. And why does that matter to you? It matters to you because you don't need to know what you're going to make to start making. And this is one of the things that, as an artist, for me, that's the reason I'm an artist. Not knowing what I'm going to make, or being invited to participate without a specified step-by-step, already figured out plan, is where I thrive. I love that space, that gray area where, like, well, what is it? What could it be? I don't know. Let's try to make something and find out. That ambiguous area is my favorite place. And I defend it. When we'll have a critique, sometimes people will say, well, it's not enough like this, and it doesn't look like that. And I'll say, no, it can be in between. In art, it can be in between. Okay? It can be ambiguous. The meaning, the message can be ambiguous, and I think that's a place worth defending. So I'm showing you these things because I don't know what I'm going to make, but I'm going to mess around with them and make something, and I'm going to show it to you in a future video. Because remember, I'm not sure what I'm making, but I want to make sure that you know you don't need to be sure where you're going when you start. This is the great thing about art, right? You can just start with whatever you want and see where it leads you, right? It's like a forking path that you're walking along. Maybe there's three choices even. And you're walking in the woods, and there's a Y, and you can go right or left, or maybe there's straight ahead too. So it's not really a Y, right? It's a trident. And you can choose. You don't have to know which way you're going when you start out on the path, right? You can say, well, that looks like it might lead over to an interesting view of the ocean, so I'm going to go left, right? Or actually, it's sort of hot, and this right hand fork is shadier. I'm going to stay on the right, okay? So But you don't know where you're going to go at the why until you start making something. So you can make a plan and you can have it all figured out. I'm going to need paint and chicken wire and 2 pounds of plaster, and I'm going to build a model of the Taj Mahal. And that's one kind of way to make things. The other way is to say, I have paint and plaster and some chicken wire, and I don't know what I'm going to make. I'm just going to start messing with these things and see where they lead me. This brings up the issue of the palette. See, you're thinking, I don't know. You don't know where you're going. Who wants to go blindly somewhere? Well, I'm saying, why not go blindly somewhere? It's a good place to, it's fine to go places we don't know where are, right? Let me give evidence for my theory. And I went over to my painting table, which is just over that way, to try to find a good example of this. But of course, I have thrown all the palettes away. But the palette, right? The palette, the place you mix your paint. You're painting, you're making all these little lovely colored chips. And you are working towards this project, right? This goal of making the color wheel or making those Joseph Albers interaction squares. You're working hard on that, and you suddenly look over and you see that your palette is this beautiful composition. It's beautiful. The colors are great. The way they're kind of melding together, where some water was on 2 of them, the way they're randomly swirling together, or the way gravity is making them behave, is just like gorgeous. And you think, well, I can't believe that. I'm slaving away over here, and over here I'm not even noticing. I'm unconsciously putting my brush in the palette, but I'm not really even looking at it, and it's beautiful. And this is a common experience. One of the best things in my studio is where the paint drips off of the paintings, and there's this beautiful spattered pattern right on the ground, on the concrete. And I always think, why can't I get that in my paintings? And I think you can, but I think one of the reasons we can't get it into our paintings as easily as we might want to is because we're busy going somewhere instead of just seeing what happens, or we're busy judging before we should be, right? Like, you're not making the palette to have it be beautiful. It's just happening. And later you come with your trained artist's eyes and you go, wow, that palette looks great, So you need both things, but you maybe don't need them at the same time. Now that I'm thinking about what I just said, I'm thinking, guys, does that make sense? Well, I hope it does. I'll try to return to this theme often because I want to be kind of not just telling you about color theory here. I should be a facilitator for you. And that means someone who kind of helps you to be a better artist. So I'm probably going to talk about the nature of making art, the impulse to make art repeatedly in this course. I usually do, actually. It's just a funny thing because I'm saying, now I'm going to talk about, which is so different than in the classroom where I just let it happen. I let students come in and say, I'm thinking about this today, or, hey, I have a question. And then we let it kind of like meander in that way. And this way, I have to do it a little bit. It's a little more broken. It's like a Morse code. I communicate a few dots to you. You communicate some dots to me. I come back with more dots. It's like a tennis ball game, I guess. Just like tennis. We're playing tennis. Anyway, so you're going to see this again, and that will remind me to talk to you again about making art, or about making. Okay, that was a long little explication, wasn't it? Let's go on to this next part, which is how I want you to begin to work on this project, all right? I'm going to change the camera to the overhead view. There you go. So you should see paint, water, a glass palette, and these thumbnail sketches. There are so many things I love that are just the simplest tools for art. And one of them is the thumbnail sketch. Another thing I love is this. This is a viewfinder, right? This one I got at the museum of the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, but it doesn't matter. You can make your own. This is an invaluable tool. We will talk about this again. These tools, these simple tools and simple tips are the best ones because they never let you down. All right, I don't know which of these 4. I'm probably going to ask you to make 2. And I want them much bigger than this, more like 6 by 6 or 8 by 8 probably. And I want you to choose, they could be exactly the same ones, that's up to you, but I want you to sort of have a different attitude, right, if that's possible, going into each one. The first one, maybe more planned, more controlled, etc. And on the second one, we're going to try to like just sort of wing it and see what the differences are. Does that make sense? You'll hear more from me about that. And plus I'll have some written instructions, but I'm not sure which one I want to use yet. And I didn't even really look at this when I made these thumbnails. But why do I make these thumbnails? Well, because it's a great way to decide what you're doing. And see, I know I said, well, just start. Well, and now I'm saying make a plan. Well, they're both useful. So if you make a thumbnail, you can kind of experiment with how you like your design without spending too much time, right? I think I'm going to leave that one with 3. So, and I don't like that one as much because look, I didn't line it up with these because I made these earlier. But that's not really important. I have drawn these in pencil on Bristol board. Now there's a couple of problems with pencil on Bristol board in conjunction with gouache. Well, the thing is that it can sometimes repel the water media paint. And by repel, I mean that you'll try to paint over that line and it'll either dissolve and be in your paint and change your color, which you won't like, or it will actually like shove the paint off of it, like, you know, like oil and water. It sort of doesn't mix. It pushes the graphite in the pencil will push the paint off of it, and then you'll have this line. So when you're actually going to the point of making the finished piece, we'll have to talk about pencils and maybe using a very, very light line or a very hard pencil that'll be easier to cover, okay? Or a colored pencil. Like there are different kinds of pencil that would be easier to paint this gouache over. So, but for now, don't worry about that. For now, we're just seeing what we want to do. And I've got some white here. I'm always talking about white. And I'm going to get a few other colors. And I don't even know, like I said, I'm just starting, so I don't really know what I want. But I know that Albers always has these interesting yellows and stuff. So maybe I'll just start there with a little bit of yellow. I'll see what I can do with some yellow. But I don't want just yellow, right? Maybe I want to go ahead and break into the forbidden pile of paints, the yellow ochre, right? Ochre is a beautiful earth color that's very plentiful, and so it's always a very inexpensive. Many paints will be priced by the, not when you buy them in a set, you don't know, right? The whole set came for whatever it was, 20 bucks or whatever. But when you buy them individually, they'll be priced according to how rare or how difficult it is to make the paint, how rare the pigment is, or how difficult it is to make the paint. And rare, that's not even a good word for it. How difficult it is to process the pigment is probably more like it. But ochre is sort of a dirt color, comes out of the ground, and it's everywhere, and it's always one of the least expensive colors. And it's a very, very useful color. I actually want to mix it probably with some, I want some violet or purple also. So that means I'm going to have to make my own, because I don't have that in my box, right? And that's fine. That's good. Where's that? Oh, I'm missing a color. I mean, I'm not. It's here somewhere, but I don't see it right now. I was looking for the kind of the rose color, right? I wanted that rose colored red, but maybe it's this one is the only one I haven't turned over. Yeah, there it is. All right. So what I'm doing here, and I'm not going to fill in every one of these because if I did, it would take me a month of Sundays and we'd never get on to part 2. But I'm just going to I want to make kind of a purpley color here. Just going to give you an example of what I'm thinking. Oh, I love that color already. See, already I don't want to change that, but I want something like that. So I'm going to take part of it, put some more white in it, and grab some of this yellow and mix that together. Yellow ochre. Oh yeah, these are going to be nice. Actually, I want it darker, so I'm going to put some over here. And I've already got 3 colors I just sort of love together. So let's see what happens. What brush? I don't know. Let's try a round one. Now remember, I talked about whether you would want to paint these by hand or tape them off. And I'm going to probably show it to you both ways. So this is a hand painted one, obviously. You don't need to get too fussy, right? Because this is just a thumbnail. You're just trying to decide what colors am I going to ultimately want to make my more finished, larger piece out of, right? So maybe that one there. But now I'm going to try this in other positions too. I'm going to put it up on this one, I'm going to put it in the outside ring, the outside square. Oh, I'm doing like a really sloppy job. But you know what? That doesn't matter here, right? This is a good place to do a sloppy job. You just want to get an idea of what these colors are going to look like together, and you don't care how straight the lines are, how flat the paint is, right? You just want to get it in there. Okay? Just get it in there. Don't worry. All right, now let's take this lovely color, the one I'm so excited about, this sort of lilac pink, and stick it in some places. Now, ideally, I would want to wait until that dried a little more because it's probably going to run together a little bit. But this is, again, I'm just seeing if I like it. Oh, and I do like it. But let's put this one in here. Now, you may be starting to think, oh man, there's so many colors. You could spend a long time deciding which one goes where. And I encourage you to spend as long as you've got. If you've got a couple of hours to fiddle around with this week, then by all means, try a lot of them. If, on the other hand, you are stepping and fetching in another class or you've got a ton of work and you just don't have any time for that kind of stuff, that's okay too. You can just put it together a little more quickly. I think you will benefit from it no matter how many hours you spend on it, if that makes sense. Okay, now we basically have just two colors here, right? We have a kind of a pink and a kind of a yellow. That's way too light, but let's just leave it for now because I got to get on to the next video. Now I want one that is very light. Most of these Albers Squares paintings, that was sort of a lot of S's, are going from dark back out to lightest light, and that kind of emphasizes that little bit of illusionistic space. It sort of looks like a long hallway that you're looking down to the end of, right? And that's something he wanted to do, but I could go another way, right? I could stick a very dark color on the outside here. Let's do it just to see, right? So I want a dark color. I see that brown and boy, I really want to grab it, but I'm not going to because I know that if I try to make my own weird gooky colors, it will be more interesting. And I've asked you to do that. So, oh, and I didn't finish that. Making things begets making things. I didn't really finish saying that you know, when I see what you're making, it makes me want to make something. So if you are feeling a little, I don't know, if you're feeling hesitant about making things, you might want to connect with someone else in the class, or maybe even someone who's taking a different class and say, hey, do you want to sit around together, even on Zoom together, and make something? Because I want to be in that space. I want to be in that energy of other people making things. And we could share that together, right? Stick this on here, this gray color. Well, actually, I really like this. But will this be the favorite one? Will I end up doing this one? Who knows? Who knows? For now, of course, I love it. But I tend to be a person like that. The one that I'm working on is the one I love. And the next one, I'll love even more. You know, each one that I'm working on is my favorite, my new favorite, my new favorite, my new best friend. Okay. I want to stop there because I don't want you to have to watch me paint these over the next 20 minutes. I'm going to stop this film, and I will have a part 2, okay, where I will have these a little more finished, and I'll talk to you about how to start making a larger one for the finished project that you'll turn in. All right, I think that's all I have to say. That's all.